didn't plan on doing this topic, but it really kind of reminded me of something that I feel like never gets talked about. Basically, the East Asian community, as we all know, is actually very, very racist, like internally racist. Okay, there's inter-Asian racism between East Asian groups, from East Asian groups towards South Asians, Southeast Asians. It's extremely, extremely deep-rooted, internalized racism that goes on there. There's like a hierarchy that is kind of upheld in East Asia. And it's always super frustrating to me whenever moments like these are called out in the Western press, but the people who are talking about it, it's not really any fault to them because most of the time they are either in the Western media or they are part of the specific minority group that is being microaggressioned against, or whatever you want to call it. So in this instance, it's Southeast Asians, right? Which obviously you would expect. And it's a good thing that they're speaking out about this kind of microaggression, or at best, lack of respect that Chanel has so flagrantly demonstrated for Bhavita Mandava. I'm sorry if I butchered that, but yeah. So just to give a really quick backstory for those of you who have been living under a rock, Bhavita Mandava, I think she was discovered last year in NYC. She was discovered in the subway. It was something out of a movie, right? And she was an NYU engineering student, if I remember correctly, 25 years old, the new muse for Chanel. She was basically plucked from obscurity. Which show did she walk in? I just want to make sure. So yeah, she gained global recognition in 2025, last year, after being the first Indian woman to open a show for Chanel at the mid-year Dart show. And she was pursuing a Master's of Science in Integrated Design and Media/Human Computer Interaction from New York University. Okay, so she goes from that to being like one of the top fashion it girls, right? And it's a historic moment for Indian models, or even just the South Asian community at large, because it's the first time that they chose a South Asian woman to represent a brand as prestigious and as European as Chanel. The recent controversy that's been going all over my For You page is that, as you could see in the thumbnail for this video, Bhavati Mandava was in attendance at the most recent Met Gala, which in and of itself was kind of like giving the Hunger Games this year, because it was sponsored by Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez, right? So people were already quite outraged about that. Certain celebrities have been openly, protesting this year's Met, which I always think is kind of stupid, because it's like, okay, especially if you're talking about celebrities that have historically always attended the Met in the past, what are you really trying to say? What statement are you trying to make by protesting it this time? Just because Jeff Bezos is openly sponsoring it, okay, but what about all of the other dirty money that sponsored the gala in the past? You didn't have a problem with it when it was happening back then because it was not front page news, right? So it's just virtue signaling as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, that's not the topic of this video. So they dressed Bhavati in this super casual, like silk remake of, I guess, the first outfit that she modeled when she first stepped out on the runway. And I believe for the show that she was modeling in, they actually staged it in a subway. So that in itself is also very kind of like subliminal messaging, Like, of course, they market it as urban chic and all of that. But at the end of the day, the optics of the situation is like, okay, so you get your first South Asian model that you're elevating to this elite status as a Chanel ambassador, or the new face of Chanel, the new international representation for Chanel, and yet you stick her in a public transport themed show. That's not by accident. Nothing is by accident, okay? Especially when you are talking about billion-dollar industries such as fashion, beauty. Nothing is on accident. Nothing has not been gone over multiple times by a whole boardroom full of directors and decision makers. So what they decided to do this time around, let me pull up the image for her Met Gala look, which was 1000% intentional, a microaggression, some are calling it. I don't know if it's that so much as, well, let's just say Chanel and all of these billion-dollar brands and companies know exactly what they're doing, okay? So it's always why I feel like it's kind of bittersweet whenever I hear stories like this of, a minority model or a minority actress being finally allowed to get her big break and shine in the spotlight, because it's like there are no flukes in the system. You know what I mean? Whatever minority model or actress or whoever that they choose to boost up in the moment, she was particularly chosen for that position for a reason, okay? And while, yes, we can be individually happy for that person, never forget that it's all a part of the bigger agenda of the industry or the label at the end of the day. Even any positive reaction that we have, it actually all just plays into the larger agenda of these historically extremely racist, extremely elitist institutions to keep us complacent, you know, because they're like, okay, let's throw them a bone once in a while. You know, they're always crying about representation. So just throw them a bone. We'll give them this girl. We'll make her the first Indian model to represent Chanel. Meanwhile, over here in Japan, I've never seen Bhavita's face a day or a second in my life. In fact, the only news that I heard about her representing or her being like the top model, whatever, for the Meteors collection last year was from Western media. Meanwhile, over here in Japan, over here in East Asia, crickets. Okay. And that brings me to the uncomfortable, unspoken elephant in the room, which is that it's not necessarily, okay, so the immediate criticism that you often hear, especially when it comes to stunts like this. Sorry, I didn't show you guys the picture yet. I cannot multitask. You guys know this. I took like a nap, and so now my makeup is weird, but it's not like bad enough for me to completely do it over again. Why is there like sticky weird stuff on my eyeliner pen? What the hell is that? I need to do a deep clean of my desk later. That is gross. I don't know what that is. It doesn't smell, but what is this? What would dry in this formation? It's not glue. Oh my god. Anyway, let me find a different pencil. Okay, hold on. Let me just finish my eyes, you guys. I'm so sorry. I should have finished this before coming on, but I just could not delay anymore because if I want to watch The Devil Wears Prada, I need to get off in about an hour and a half. Interestingly enough, I feel like The Devil Wears Prada too also ties into this whole conversation about like high fashion and the way that it snubs certain communities. Case in point, South Asian communities. Basically, okay, the reason that they picked Bhavita to be their model for the mid-years collection was essentially just to throw a bone and to appease the South Asian community so that they could secure the South Asian consumer dollar. It's not really about representation or respect at the end of the day, because if it was about true representation, they would have had her face plastered everywhere, right? If they truly meant for her to be the new face of Chanel, you know, like the new representation, the new international poster child, then they would have made her one of the dominant faces in most of their campaigns around the world. And it's just not the case, okay? And I'm telling you as a fashion industry insider. So I'm going to show you, it took me like so long to pull up these receipts because for some reason I have a knack for saving every single photo and screenshot in my phone that I don't need and then deleting all the ones that I do happen to need later whenever I have an idea for a video or a live stream later on that warrants such supporting materials. Give me 1 second. I need to find my lip gloss. My lip gloss is popping. My lip gloss is cool. It was right in front of me. A lot of people are saying that she was sabotaged and that it's a microaggression, it's racism, because what they did was they gave her this outfit, right? For the Met Gala. Now, this is a silk. As I understand, it's an all silk recreation. Don't look at my nails, okay? I'm giving them a rest day. But this is an all silk recreation of, I guess, like the first look that she ever modeled in that first collection that she debuted in, which was very urban, like subway themed. So this was the original outfit, right? Jeans and just like a zip up, half zip up pullover. And this was a casual look, which is fine because this was the theme for the show. But now we are in 2026 at the Met Gala. People are saying that, you know, the theme was supposed to be kind of like a high fashion reenactment of her more, you know, her casual, humble beginnings. And this outfit is actually not denim. It's all silk. So this is actually very, very expensive materials wise. And as I understand, it was custom made for her. But people are outraged, right? Especially the South Asian community, because they are saying that this is kind of a covert or overt, depending on how you look at it, immediate act of microaggression or racism against her. Because why do you have another longstanding Chanel ambassador on the carpet by the name of Jennie from Blackpink, and yet she was given, honestly, her outfit was kind of boring to me too, but at least she was given a gown, right? The Met Gala is like the Ferrari of fashion events, so you're not supposed to send down your prized models, you know, like your prized ambassadors in a casual look. You want to dress them up as beautifully as possible, especially with the theme this year being art is life or art imitates life, something like that. I don't even remember. I'm so checked out of the Met Gala, you guys, despite working in this industry. By the way, I don't work adjacent to any of the design teams or anything like that. I'm like just trying to help people figure out how to fix their apps so that I can go home. But yeah, so why did they give Jennie this beautiful mermaid scale gown? I'm sure this was all hand applied sequins or whatever you want to call it. And I'm sure it took like 5,000 hours to make. So how come Jennie gets this treatment and Bhavita gets like casual, unfitted? You know, it doesn't even flatter her body, right? It doesn't even flatter her body. It's giving Zara. This is not me criticizing her. This is me calling out Chanel for being shady. People are saying accurately that yes, this is absolutely microaggression. This is a way for them to covertly signal and show the South Asian community that we want and we accept your dollars, but we don't want you to actually represent us on the world stage, right? And we're not going to let her shine like the star that she deserves to shine, although her face card is never going to decline. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel like their plan backfired in their face, but they're saying that, yeah, if it was a white model or a European model, she would never be subjected to this type of treatment. They would never dare to send her down the runway at the Met Gala in some jeans or pants that are supposed to mimic the look of jeans. That is only half the story, okay? The other half of the story that no one talks about, because actually the East Asian community is extremely racist, both internally, like there's a lot of East Asian on East Asian racism, and also from East Asians towards Southeast Asians or South Asians. So basically towards other Asians of darker complexions. Did you guys hear that? An earthquake just happened right now. Shit, I'm glad I didn't have a candle burning. Okay, I think that was it. I don't know if you guys saw or heard that, but like my entire room just... Anyway, East Asian people are never going to out themselves. So it's very convenient that you guys are like still attributing all of this to just white supremacy, which yes, partially, of course, that Chanel is still a French fashion house at the end of the day. So partially that is the issue here, but a huge part of the issue that I never see discussed, okay, because East Asian people, my community is not shit sometimes. And so East Asian people are never going to show their hand and villainize themselves, although I have no problem doing it because I am not racist and I'm not colorist against other people in the Asian diaspora. So I have no problem exposing what's really going on here. The real issue, okay, it's not just white supremacy or the deification of European features, the desire to have European faces represent high fashion luxury houses. It's also because East Asian consumers themselves, even though we're talking about a fellow Asian model here, East Asian consumers do not want Asian representation unless it fits a very narrow type that they approve of, which is essentially like very fair skin, an East Asian look. Okay, so no South Asian features. They don't like darker skin, of course. They want a distinctly East Asian look, like K-pop singer or East Asian actress. Those are the only people that they want to represent themselves in luxury on the world stage. Side note, I love your makeup here. Thank you so much, Prism Cupcake. I feel like I'm missing something. Oh yeah, I forgot to reapply my blush. So that's the elephant in the room that is never talked about, because East Asian people, my community, think that they're slick, okay? But luckily for you guys, I don't give a fuck. And I'll call out everyone because I don't have internalized racism for other people in the Asian diaspora. East Asian people have been pulling this bullshit since the beginning of time. And I'm going to prove it to you just with my own personal anecdotes. I'm going to show you, let me show you 2 years ago. Okay, I work in Ginza, right? So in Ginza Station, they have panels along some of the pillars in like the underground areas when you get out of the subway. or when you get off the train. So they have a lot of like electronic billboards on the pillars. In Ginza station in particular, there's a lot of high fashion luxury brand ads on there. So 2 years ago, I snapped a picture, which should be here. No, did I delete it again? Oh, here it is. Okay. I don't know if you can see September 2nd, 2024. This was 2 years ago. They have a Chanel ad with Jenny, of course, because she's kind of the ambassador in this part of the world, right? This was September 2nd, 2024. So Jenny's been an ambassador for them for a minute now. And there's like other models that appear here sometimes, but it's usually other European models. Like I've seen Margot Robbie, of course, she's kind of the face of their new beauty campaign right now. And there was like 1 or 2 black models that I saw before, but 90% of the time, 80% of the time, they be playing this Jenny ad on repeat, or there's various things that Jenny is constantly promoting, right? And I don't have a recent video for you, unfortunately, because I literally go into the office about 4 times on a good month. I mean, I'm exercising my right to work from home as an IT girly. What do you want me to do? But from time to time, I'll go in the office, you know, because it's good to show my face and I need to catch up on the gossip with my gay manager friend. Tell me why I've never seen Bhavita's face once. They don't consider South Asians or Southeast Asians as worthy enough to represent a high fashion brand here in East Asia, okay? So this doesn't really have anything to do, it doesn't have as much to do with white supremacy or people, you know, shunning Asian features, shunning Asian models in favor of European models as much as you think. In fact, probably the people who campaigned for and positioned Bhavita to even be a model for Chanel in the first place, probably those people were European, right? The decision makers that pick the faces of the new campaigns, those people probably came from the actual head office in Paris.
Case in point, Mathieu Blazy himself, who is the current creative director of Chanel, is known for acknowledging Bhavita as his muse. Now, I don't know if he himself was actually directly quoted saying that, but regardless, that's the story that they're going with, right? So back when she was discovered at the subway, Blazy was still at Bottega Veneta, and that was when she first got on his radar. So he was the one that was, at least in large part, responsible for opening the doors for her even to progress to Chanel.
If it were up to the local East Asian branches of the Double C company, they don't want a certain aesthetic here to represent them in the luxury brand space. They stay claiming Jenny Kim from Blackpink as their ambassador. Why? Because she fits the beauty standard here in East Asia. And East Asians are so like full of shit to the point where there are people that are not even happy that Jenny is the ambassador for Chanel here. Because believe it or not, there's a lot of Japanese people that are like, why is it not a Japanese girl? We don't want a Korean girl to represent the Asian high fashion, high luxury market. We want a Japanese girl. Chinese people too, Chinese netizens that are complaining all the time, why don't you put a Chinese girl? Why don't you put a Singaporean girl? So you see, moral of the story, the East Asian community ain't shit, and I'm here to expose all of them because I don't give a fuck. I'm so sick of it. Like, my best friend in elementary school was Indian. Maybe that has something to do with it, but I mean, I'm American, right? I was born and raised in the States, and I only moved to Japan after I became an adult. So thank God I was not indoctrinated with this type of like internalized self-hatred or hierarchical thinking towards other Asian groups in our diaspora, because how disgusting and pathetic, right? But that's actually what's going on here. And I don't see anybody talking about this aspect of the issue. And also, I want to point out the fact that they always do this on purpose, right? Like these brands, these corporations know exactly what they're doing. They picked Bhavita Mandava because, of course, the girl is gorgeous, okay? Don't even piss me off. That girl is completely stunning and gorgeous, and she embodies the essence of like high fashion, okay? She has the bone structure and everything, so anyone can tell why she was chosen to represent Chanel, or, you know, be the first Indian model to represent Chanel. But the reason that they picked her is because they knew that she was going to be compliant, you know? I think I saw an interview, like a little casual pre-interview of her before she went on the carpet, and she was saying how, yeah, like they came to me with the idea of recreating my look from the first fashion show, but like elevating it with silk material. And I thought it was a great idea, you know? Like I thought that, wow, that's so creative. So of course they were going to pick her to be their vehicle. It's kind of like a Trojan horse. I don't know if that's the best analogy, but it's kind of like, okay, here we're throwing you a bone. We picked up this, beautiful but powerless, right? Very relatively powerless young girl from obscurity and put her in some Chanel boots, put her in a fashion show. So, hey, now you all can buy our products guilt-free, right? Because look, we put one of your own in our show. So yeah, we filled the inclusivity quota. So now open up your wallets to us. That's essentially what they're saying to Indian consumers with this chess move of putting Bhavita Mandava in the recent Matthew Blazy collection. But the thing is that it's not just about her beauty. It's about everything that she represents or everything that she doesn't have, right? So she relatively has no influence or no real voice in the industry. She's a complete unknown. Do you see how, okay, let me try to explain this. It serves a dual purpose, right? Because first of all, it really, really feeds into humans' tendencies to root for the underdog, right? So they hook you that way by plucking a 25-year-old girl from obscurity who was studying to become an engineering major or, something in STEM, right? So already that's even more points because it's like, oh my God, she was like such a studious girl, such a decent, good girl. And yet she just happened to be beautiful enough to be the face of Chanel, right? So how kind, how generous of Chanel to give her this opportunity. So then you automatically feel like, okay, you know what? Maybe I had my criticisms of the high fashion industry before, or maybe I never really liked Chanel that much in the past. But now that they've done this act of look at how good they're being, look at how they're giving a chance to this underdog and how they're, giving her a chance to shine on the world stage, especially if you're South Asian, right? That kind of thing, it pulls at your heartstrings. So that's how they get you emotionally. That's the first emotional hook. But then it's a double-edged sword, right? Because now you feel like you cannot criticize anything involving this model. Or when you criticize what's happening, like for example, her look at the Met Gala, you feel like you have to tiptoe around it so as not to hurt her feelings or make it clear that I'm not criticizing Bhavita Mandava herself. She's the victim here. Like she's the one that's being wronged, but Chanel ain't shit for this, right? But it's like you can't really say that second part with your whole chest because of your affection now towards Bhavita, because of your motherly feeling towards her now. You understand what I mean? So you can't fully criticize it. And then on top of that, this hidden layer that nobody ever addresses online, but I'm addressing it right now because that's what I like to do on my channel. I like to unearth the elephant in the room or the less talked about perspectives. The thing that everyone tries to sweep under the rug, I like to just bring it to the forefront, which is the fact that it's not even European society or the North American, the European market that's necessarily against having a South Asian face represent a brand like Chanel. It's literally the Asian market itself. Because let me show you, look, I'll prove it to you. Let's search right now. What is the region of the world where the largest percentage of Chanel's profits come from? What region are Chanel's sales the greatest? I don't know. ChatGPT, do your thing. AI, do your thing. The Asia Pacific region has consistently been the greatest contributor to Chanel's global revenue, accounting for more than half of its annual sales as of recent reports. Boom. Is Asia Pacific, wait, sorry. I'm so sorry. Does that encompass like SEA as well? Okay, East Asia, Southeast Asia, South Asia, and Oceania. Okay, so then let's do a follow-up search. What region in the Asia Pacific constitute most of Chanel's sales? Oh, would you look at that? China. The country with the largest population of East Asians. Would you look at that? So who do you think is really pulling the strings here? It's always about the bottom line when it comes to the luxury market or the fashion market. Also, India's luxury market is the next biggest thing. That's why they got an Indian CEO and put Bhavita as their face. Nothing about this is altruistically inclusive. Yeah. And like I just said, I've literally never seen Bhavita's face anywhere in the branding or the advertising for Chanel here in Tokyo. But since 3 years ago or 2 years ago, okay, when I first started going to Ginza and seeing all the Chanel ads in the subway, which 90% of the time show Jenny, who's like the de facto brand ambassador here in Asia. Sometimes you see Margot Robbie, right? when it comes to like the beauty campaigns and whatnot, or especially nowadays, I guess, because they, she just had a huge movie come out, that Wuthering Heights with Emerald Fennell. But I've never seen Bhavita's face, not in public ads. It's always Jenny or sometimes Margot Robbie. It's not altruistic, like you said, in the slightest. It's not even trying to posit itself as being inclusive. It's purely there to pander and to secure the Indian consumer market. That's it. So I'm not surprised at all that they did her like this at the Met Gala. And as I understand it too, India, unfortunately, I mean, I'm not part of this community, obviously, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to speak too much, but people always have something to say, it seems, about Indian people in entertainment that get famous in the Western market. Because like every time I see an Indian actress who makes it big in either Hollywood or like Western media, whether it's this Bhavita girl, in the European luxury fashion market, or Simone Ashley, Bridgerton, who else was there? Mindy Kaling, who was on The Office and a lot of other things since then. But like, I always see murmurings of complaints from actual Indian people that are in India who say that, oh, but she doesn't fit the Bollywood beauty standards and things like that. And this happens with East Asian actors as well, the ones that make it in Hollywood. People don't find Lucy Liu attractive in mainland China. They love Eileen Gu though. So there's a very small subset of Gen Z stars, it seems. Eileen Gu and Alyssa Liu, probably because they're both half white, and this is nothing against those girls. I love Alyssa Liu. I think she's adorable. I watched her routine to Stateside like 10 times in a row when it first came out, because it was just so cute. Well, I'm not trying to like diminish how much work she put into her craft by calling it cute, but it was just so like whimsical. I love her attitude, is what I'm trying to say, towards winning. It was refreshing to see someone not take themselves so seriously and not be so hell-bent and rigid towards the idea of wanting to win or secure a gold medal. Like it was really refreshing to see, especially an Asian girl, reject the idea that she needs to like suffer and, do all this extra stuff to win. The fact that she was like, hey, I'm just going to have fun. And that's my biggest priority, right? Over the gold medal, over securing honor from my family or whatever. My biggest priority is just to have fun, which of course she was in a very privileged position in the first place to be able to say that. But still, I appreciate that. But yeah, they love Eileen Gu and Alyssa Liu because they're half white essentially. And they don't like China to this day, they will never accept Lucy Liu as their beauty icon, Same goes for, again, most of the East Asian actors that have managed to make breakthroughs in Hollywood, like Simu Liu. I don't like Simu Liu just because he's a tryhard. It has nothing to do with his looks, actually, but like I never liked Simu Liu, and I'm so glad that he's quiet now, because he had a moment there where he was in everything, and it was just insufferable to watch him in interviews. I can't stand a man that is like insecure and can't get over, I don't know, his incel days. Like, bruh, no one cares. Do you know what I'm talking about? I'm so sorry. Simu Liu catching strays on this live for no reason. But no, like I remember I saw a interview, I think it was for the Barbie promotion, where he was just doing the most. He was like, yeah, I used to do hip hop and break dance, and he would do this thing. Like nobody asked him, nobody, not a soul. Crickets. Simu Liu, oh, look what I can do. I'm actually good at hip hop dance and everything as well. Okay, no one asked you to, I think because like there was a dance scene in Barbie, right? So then he saw that as his chance to showcase how good of a dancer he was as well. And I was like, dude, this is just pathetic. Like people who don't find you attractive are not going to find you attractive no matter how hard you try. In fact, the harder you try to show them how versatile and how talented you are, the more that they're just going to disdain you. That's how human nature is. You'd be better off just ignoring everything and like continuing to serve aura, just aura farm, but in an authentic way. Don't be out here like shucking and jiving. And anyway, India is very colorist and they are mad because she's not light skinned, and Bhavita is so stunning by any standards. Yeah. The skin color is the hugest thing in Asia, right? But if you look at Bhavita, like her bone structure fits exactly the bill for high fashion. I mean, they can deny it all they want, but that's the reason why she was chosen and not like a more stereotypically Bollywood looking actress. It's because she has the features that high fashion values. So, but the sad thing is, and another part that I almost forgot, it doesn't matter how much we can universally agree that her features are stunning and that she fits the bill perfectly for being a high fashion model. It doesn't matter because at the end of the day, who gets the last say in our society? The male gaze, okay? The patriarchy. So unless men find you attractive or desirable, unless men deem you, sorry to use this word, but fuckable, right? This is the kind of language that they use, then you will never get to stratospheric status the way that other models who do appeal to the male gaze can achieve. You might get some temporary traction, right? You might get to be an it girl for women consumers, right? The women can love you up and down all they want. But at the end of the day, the patriarchy and a lot of these industries are controlled by men. And so therefore, they're not going to let anything that deviates too far from the male gaze or the male image of desirability. They're not going to let somebody like that rise to the top organically. It's not an organic process, it's very deliberate. So I was saying before, and I kind of trailed off on a tangent, but they picked Bhavita because she is compromising. Or no, that's not the right word. She is accommodating, right? So of course you pick an obscure NYU student that probably comes from humble beginnings, right? She doesn't have any family connections or wealth to fall back on. So of course she's going to go along with whatever Vogue or who organizes the Met Gala. Vogue, Anna Wintour, is she still involved? I don't even know. But of course, they're going to pick somebody who doesn't have a lot of social backing or doesn't come from a lot of social capital because they know that she's going to go along with whatever agenda that they recruit her for because she's just happy to have a seat at the table, right? They purposely pick someone who's humble and, she's damned if she does and damned if she doesn't. Let's say that she did speak out or push back and say that, hey, actually, I don't want to go walk the Met Gala carpet in a casual shirt and jeans. This seems kind of unfair. This seems like, why can't I have a beautiful gown? Or why can't I have just a more aesthetically captivating outfit, which is the whole point of the Met Gala. Imagine if she had said that. Do you know how quickly they would have blackballed her from the industry? She knows this implicitly. They don't have to threaten her. She's damned if she does and damned if she doesn't. So now that she's gone along with it, the thing is that she can't say anything, right, against the hand that feeds her. But then at the same time, it makes us women who see the mechanisms at play here that want to defend her, it does weaken us by proxy in a way. So that's the saddest part because we feel like we don't want to say anything against her in particular. We want to protect Bhavita, right? Because we know that she's not the one that is pulling the strings in this whole operation. She's just going along with whatever script that they want her to follow. So in our desire to protect her and to not come down too hard on her or make her feel bad,
or God forbid, inadvertently dampening her career or something with our protests, definitely don't want that to happen.
We hold back on our actual criticism of the industry. So that's how they preserve their power and their influence. Yeah, but I'm here to just mainly call out the East Asian internalized racism of it all. And the fact that as a ground zero, I've never seen Bhavita's face even once. I've never seen her face anywhere. It's only Jenny. And even that, some people have a lot to say. They don't want a Korean girl. They want a Japanese girl to be their brand ambassador here in Tokyo. And I also spoke about this in one of my previous makeup review videos as well. So I got this palette. I don't know if you guys remember the Alice in Wonderland Bobbi Brown palette, which I hate, by the way. I don't know what I was on when I bought this collection. The colors are just so not me. Like this toasty, burnt, like orangey, toasty, mauve color palette. I'm so not into the toasty, orangey, caramelly look. I'm into like the cool tone pinks, in case you couldn't tell. And I don't care if it doesn't necessarily match my undertone or whatever the best. That's what I like, okay? So that's what we're going to put on my face and we're going to make it work. Even the lipstick, look, it's like this burnt terracotta color. I don't like this color. I think the Alice in Wonderland nostalgia is just too strong. Like I kind of just momentarily blacked out and I spent $400 on this collection. But yeah, I was talking about in my review of this collection that it's funny to me whenever these luxury brands, luxury makeup brands, right? Like Chanel, Dior, Shu Uemura, etc. Whenever they come out with collaborations and whenever I read Trend Mood or like a more Western facing makeup news page that reports on these new collections about to drop, and I always see a bunch of comments from disgruntled Western consumers complaining about how the color palette is boring or it never has enough pigmentation or like, yeah, it's neutral and boring. Couldn't they have come up with something more interesting for Alice in Wonderland? It's such a wasted opportunity because there were so many better, more colorful directions that they could have gone with this. And I said in that video that it's so funny how, in a way, it must be kind of a blessing to be that delusional, right? So I'm talking about like Western consumers, Caucasian consumers, it must be a different type of reality that they live in to where you are so privileged to the point where you cannot even conceive that the consideration for you as a consumer comes second to the largest market for these types of goods, which is, again, the Asian market. So the fact that like Caucasian people cannot conceive of the fact that they could ever be an afterthought or that they could be like the second or less level of priority when it comes to who these brands are really pandering to or making their products to. I just pulled up the statistic a couple minutes ago for Chanel. Most of the profits to Chanel come from the Asia Pacific region. And within the Asia Pacific region itself, the largest percentage of profits comes from China, okay, which is an East Asian country. So same thing goes for a lot of these high-end makeup brands. Like the fact that Western consumers, a lot of people in the West, they are so removed from, I think it's kind of like, okay, I feel like the geographic distance kind of causes a delay in realization in real time of like how the market is actually moving. That coupled with the fact that they just cannot fathom that they would ever be, second priority or less on the list of valued consumers in these brands' minds or campaigns. Because it's like, if you just did a quick Google search of the statistics, it's obvious that the East Asian or just the Asia Pacific market is the largest market for these brands. Just because the name is like Chanel, Louis Vuitton, whatever. Yes, they retain their European names because they originated from Europe, right? But that doesn't mean that in 2026, their core customer base is in Europe. No, by sheer numbers alone. Do you know how many Asian people are on this planet? Just by sheer probability and numbers alone, it makes total sense that the majority of consumer spending comes from the Asia Pacific region, especially since like China and other areas are getting richer now. So they make their color palettes, everything that they design around a new collection or a new release is made with the preferences of the Asian consumer in mind or at the forefront. It's not made for Western consumers, right? And it's so funny because like I had this girl trying to argue with me in the comments of that video. She was like, well, no, I disagree. I'm like, you're delusional. She's like, I disagree. I think that they are still catering mainly to white or Caucasian consumers, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're delusional. Where is the data that supports, show me the data that shows the majority percentage of revenue that luxury makeup brands make comes from the European region or the North American region. It doesn't exist. It comes from the Asian region. That's why they keep making these neutral ass, bland, boring color stories. It's because this is what sells in Asia, okay? They don't like bright, colorful Jeffree Star style makeup in Asia. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It's just the brands responding to the reality of the market in 2025. For some reason, I guess like when you're used to being, I don't know, like the dominant race or the de facto race for generations upon generations, it's like they have an inability to interpret reality for what it is. They just feel like, wait, but something must be wrong here though. Like something's wrong at these creative teams in these brands. Why are they not giving the people what they want? Yeah, because the people who want bright, colorful makeup are in a very small minority compared to the people that actually spend the money on these collections, which is Asian people. Okay? I'm not saying it's right or anything. I'm just saying that these are the facts of the situation. And so same exact thing applies to the Bhavita Mandava situation. But this was quite blatant. I have to say, the level of audacity in putting her not only in a casual outfit, but one that is so ill-fitted as this one, I have to say I'm actually a little shocked at this level of audacity of Chanel. But this is exactly the message that they're sending to us. Okay. And by they, I don't just mean the European heads or the North American heads of the label. I'm talking about largely the decision makers in the Asia Pacific region. Okay. So it's kind of, not to be depressing. My videos are never meant to depress you or fearmonger or anything, but it's just to show you like we cannot make a change. We cannot create an effective strategy to move forward unless we acknowledge the truth or the reality of the current situation, which is the fact that East Asians are some of the biggest culprits, if not the biggest culprit, when it comes to not allowing a South Asian model like this shine and truly be the face of a beloved luxury fashion house. Okay. Like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this. We're not just going to deflect and blame it on white supremacy every single time. No, there's a lot of ain't shit people in the Asian diaspora as well. Whether it's Indians who are, self-hating and they don't want someone who deviates from the regular light-skinned Bollywood ideal representing India, or it's East Asians, which comprise the majority of the Asia Pacific market for these luxury brands that refuse to see. This is the thing about East Asians, right? They don't have to perform like a love or an acceptance of somebody from their own community because she's not East Asian, right? So they don't have to really, it's not as sticky of a situation for them to reject her as the Chanel ambassador as it is for people in India. Do you understand what I mean? Because if you're Indian and let's just say men, right? Because usually, again, that's what it all comes down to. It's the patriarchy and the perpetuators of the male gaze in our society. So let's say it's like Indian men who have internalized colorism and they don't want to see a darker skinned girl representing their country as the muse or the face of a luxury European brand. So, but they cannot be as overt about their dissatisfaction if they're actually Indian, right? Because then the world will point their fingers at them immediately and be like, hey, aren't you being a hypocrite? Why are you not supporting someone from your own country, right? So they have to be more kind of like sneaky and covert in expressing their displeasure or their lack of support towards Bhavita. But East Asian people, we're not Indian. So it's like nobody expects the East Asian community to necessarily take up for this girl, right? I'm taking up for her because I think this is bullshit. But like, I'm only one person. The majority of the East Asian community, they just turn the other way. They're like, okay, we're going to ignore. They have the luxury of just ignoring what they don't want. And then the world doesn't question them about it, right? Because we're not Indian. So it kind of flies under the radar of criticism. Like, oh, okay, well, East Asia, whatever. It's not about them. White supremacy, that's the problem. No, East Asia is the problem too. East Asians are very, very colorist and very, very classist, very hierarchical in their thinking about their perceived status above people, Asians with darker skin tones, Asians from parts of the world that have darker complexions, like India, like the Philippines. I mean, just look at how much Lisa gets hated in Korea. This is why I love Lisa too. I love the fact that she's one of the hugest stars to ever come out of the K-pop industry, especially for this generation, like Gen Z, because she's Thai and they can't deny her global popularity, how beloved she is. And she's always played the game to a T herself as well. Like she's never skipped a beat in terms of she really plays that role of like the carefree, la-di-da, I'm just so naturally talented and gorgeous and going along my way. And I love how she just keeps winning and like making the naysayers so mad every time that she breaks a new record or she branches out into a new industry and is completely blows it out of the water. Like when she made her acting debut on the White Lotus, I loved her in that series. And also she shut it down at Coachella recently as well with Anima, right? They had the huge Lisa AI hologram or whatever it was. And her outfit was like hands down, the best outfit at Coachella. And now she's also she also had a good Met Gala look with the extra arms. And I know that there's a bunch of Koreans out there pissed still They can stay mad, okay, until the day that they go to their graves about the fact that Lisa, a girl from Thailand, is one of the biggest symbols and representatives of their country's crowning glory, which is the K-pop industry. Whether they like it or not, like Lisa will always be that girl. So I love it when like, yeah, East Asian hypocrisy and internalized racism is shitted on by individuals like Lisa. But see, Lisa is powerful now in the industry, right? Because of the success of Blackpink and the longevity of her career as well as her group, she has like more power in the industry than somebody like Bhavita Mandava, who was basically, again, just an unknown. She's just a model, right? So she's disposable, essentially, which is why they picked her. Again, it's because she's the most compliant. They knew that, hey, this girl is just going to be happy to be included. This girl's not going to cause a fuss. She knows better than to cause a fuss or to push back. That's the reality of the system that we're working in right now. I feel like Tyla had potential as well to kind of move the needle a little bit, but the thing with Tyla is that it's a little complicated with her because she's mixed, right? So I think she's part Indian, part Black, and then she had the whole controversy about calling herself colored instead of Black. And so I think Tyla is very young and she didn't have a true strategist on her team early enough, because if she had the right PR help, if she had like a really truly skilled strategist on her team who was able to media train her to navigate all of these sticky race conversations or racially charged situations, if she had gotten that on lock more at the beginning of her career, I feel like she would have been able to play the game better. But since she didn't, and this is not blaming her, this is me just saying that the system makes it very, very hard to win if you're someone from one of these marginalized groups who manages to break through and have like global or legitimate success. I feel like Tyla is somebody that, yeah, like I wish that she would have had better support at the beginning of her career, because once you say something that people are not happy with or they run with to drum up controversy, it's very hard to take it back. And it's also not a good look to ever backpedal, because then you look weak or you look wishy-washy. You look like you don't know what you stand for, or that you're just, you have no backbone. So Tyla, I felt for her. In the beginning, everyone loved her single water and she was winning awards left and right. But then once the controversial incidents, I'm going to say it in quotes, of her calling herself colored instead of Black, and people being upset at her for not claiming her Black heritage or whatever, I could see that she didn't really know how to navigate that. And so she opted to be silent, essentially. I remember there was one interview with, I think it was the Breakfast Club or like one of these podcasts, where they tried to ask her, the host was trying to lead her on and ask her about the whole colored situation. And she basically just like clammed her mouth shut. And she had her PR person behind her say that, hey, we're not going to answer questions about that. But like by that point, I think it was a little bit too late. People had already decided the narrative of her that they wanted to believe in their minds. So yeah. It's never by accident, okay? Whoever the industry, any industry, fashion, music, entertainment, it's never an accident who they decide to elevate. Everyone is an industry plant to some extent. Because do you know how many colored people, how many Indian artists and actresses and models, do you know how many other Tylas there are out there that have been grinding and ready for their big break for the longest time? But there's a reason why the industries that they were gunning for decided to pass over them, right? It's all about who can fit the political agenda of the current powers that be the best. Look at Simone Ashley too. Her pairing with Jonathan, I forget his name, Kate and Andrew. Is that it? The second season of Bridgerton. Kate and Anthony, yes. They were the most popular season. They were the most popular couple on Bridgerton. And yet somehow they strangely refused to put Simone Ashley in all of the promotional materials for Bridgerton 2. Do you think that's an accident? No. Even though she was like a fan favorite, like they're not going to, the people at the top, again, they are operating from the male gaze. They're operating from a very patriarchal point of view. And women love Simone Ashley, but she's not considered like boy pretty, right? So the people at the top, the powers that be, are not going to let that slide. You know, they're not going to let the favorite of the people or the people's princess win. That's too much power, okay, to give a random. No, they need to have the power and the influence go to whoever they carefully selected to carry out their agenda. Look at Princess Diana, a literal princess, and they took her out because she was getting too popular. Okay, because she was not that was not supposed to be her role. She was supposed to be quiet and long suffering. As long as she did what they wanted her to do, they would have left her alone. But since she decided to be subversive, they were not going to let that go. So this is how it goes. This is how it works at every level of hierarchy, in every type of industry, group, secret society. It's not an accident. And they leave just enough, always. In every single scenario, they always leave enough for plausible deniability, right? So in this case, for example, the fact that the actual outfit, it was expensive. It was custom made for Bhavita. It was some rare silk material. They can always go back and say that, oh, no, this was just the artistic vision. Sometimes the execution falls flat, but the vision was pure, right? The vision was well intentioned. They were celebrating like her humble beginnings. That was not malicious. It's just that the execution fell flat because, okay, maybe we did make a mistake. Maybe in hindsight, it wasn't the best idea to put her in like plain everyday street clothes in an event where everybody traditionally shows up in a really, really stunning, one of a kind couture like gown. But hey, shit happens. They always leave a little bit of plausible deniability there to give themselves an out. So that's why it doesn't matter how much outrage a small faction of social media drums up over this incident, they'll never be able to. They're like slippery snakes, like they always make sure that you cannot quite ever catch them, right? And at the end of the day, the heightened controversy, whether positive or negative, well, controversy usually has a negative connotation. So at the end of the day, the heightened controversy only serves to benefit the brand and the industry. It only serves to heighten the visibility of this Met Gala, which, if you'll remember, they really needed visibility because people were not playing about boycotting this Met Gala in particular because of their unhappiness or their disapproval of the Bezoses getting involved, right? That was the real controversy this time around, that they needed to take your attention and your eyeballs off of. So what better way to do it than to use poor, sweet, beautiful, universally loved Bhavita and put her in the center so that now, before like firing or launching the truly deserved amount of criticism that Chanel and the fashion industry deserves, now you're subconsciously holding back because you don't want to hurt Bhavita in the process. And you hold back just enough so that they can get away with it again. Food for thought, food for thought. And with that being said, I guess I'll go watch Devil Wears Prada 2.